I'm so excited you're here. Welcome to Rising Up Rare. I'm your host, Allie Ladd, mom and advocate of 2 kids with MPS 1 and co-founder of the Kennedy Ladd Foundation. In each episode, we'll explore personal stories of resilience, hope, and the hard-earned lessons we've learned while navigating rare disease. My hope is that you feel less alone and remember that each of us have a unique gift to help someone else. May these conversations bring hope and inspire action. Together, let's rise up. Welcome back to the Rising Up Rare podcast. I'm so excited to have another MPS 1 mom here with me today. I have Lauren, and she is actually from a neighboring community. She's from Smithfield, Tennessee.
Smith County,
Tennessee.
On the outskirts of Smithfield.
And I asked her, I said, is that Carthage? And she said, Gordonsville.
Yes, Carthage, Gordonsville. Technically, we're in Carthage, but Jude goes to school in Gordonsville.
So it's exciting. I actually went to college in Cookeville, so that's pretty close. That's how I know the landmark of Carthage. So I'm so excited to have Lauren here with me today. And it's not often that I have somebody actually come in person. So even more, I feel like it's a Mom's Day. So it's going to be hard to have a podcast here when we're ready to get out of here. But really, we're just here I want Lauren to go through her diagnostic journey with Jude, who I said has MPS 1. Really just any tips or anything that we could give. Either you're a new listener and you don't know anything about MPS 1, or maybe you found us because you're a newly diagnosed family, or maybe you just have a rare disease and there's some tip or something that Lauren says or that you hear in our podcast that can bring you hope and help you be able to take the next action to do something for yourself or for your child or someone else. We all just have a world of knowledge, and until we tell our story, you never know what's going to change somebody's life or give somebody
And everybody's
hope.
story is unique.
Yep. And so that's one thing we harp on. Me and Lauren talked about it a little bit actually before the podcast, is that you don't know, you're here for a purpose, and you don't know what's going to help somebody else. So we're really just in here to brainstorm and talk and tell the world about MPS 1 and rare disease.
That's right.
So I'm so thankful to finally have you here.
I'm excited.
Like this has been
I've been so excited.
Going on for, well, we filmed your family, so part of the Cure MPS 1 project.
And that was around this time last year.
I think it was February of last year. And so that's how long it's taken us to.
It's been a process. We're hard to pin down.
Well, I mean, it's us too. We're learning. I also know your life is chaotic, most rare disease families.
With rare disease plus everything else we keep going on in our lives. So.
Yeah. So I'm not going to let you start then. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then really you can tell what you want about your family, and we'll just see where that leads us and go from there.
Okay, so I am Jude McCaleb. My son is Jude McCaleb. He is now 9 years old. Just turned 9 on December 28th.
I missed that too.
I know. He just turned 9. So I have a 9-year-old. That's crazy.
Bad we didn't know his birthday. I'm going to remember now.
No, his birthday right after Christmas, it's just like he never stops celebrating the whole month of December.
Good. He deserves it.
So, yeah, he definitely does not lack for celebration. But no, he just turned 9, and our story's a little unique. Jude's only been diagnosed for two years, I believe. And so, yeah, it makes us a little bit different. Jude was diagnosed with MPS 1 attenuated. So he is not severe. He is not Hurler's. I think they've never categorized him as Hurler-Shea or Shea, but I would say he's right there in between. I'll give a little background on Jude and things like what he's into as a 9-year-old. He is a typical 9-year-old. He is very mischievous. He's obsessed with sports. That is his number one thing. He collects sports cards. He can tell you any stat that you want. We quizzed him on New Year's Eve, and we would say the football players, like the NFL player, and he would tell you who they play for and their position. I did not realize how much he knew.
Wow.
It blew my mind. I just wish he was that dedicated in school. If he would be, I told his teachers, I was like, if you would relate it to sports, he could do it.
School him for everybody.
I mean, no, definitely But yes, he's very into sports. Our family farms. We have registered Angus cattle. And so that is a business that my husband started in 2012. And it's McCaleb Brothers Angus. And that's what he named it in 2012, thinking he was naming it for he and his brothers. And then God gave us 2 little boys, and we realized that they are the brothers. That's who we're doing it for. So Jude is also very involved in the farm life. He loves to go feed and help his daddy on the farm. So that consumes a lot of our life. But yeah, Jude is just your typical little boy. He loves playing basketball. That's where we're at right now, we're in the middle of basketball season. So
he is playing like community basketball.
Yes, he is playing Upwards right now, which is played at a church. It's a faith-based league, and we love Upwards. So we're in the middle of that right now, and then he will go into baseball. Baseball is something new. We started that last year. It was something that I didn't think I could ever let him do because, of course, he's got a port, but I just didn't know if he could do it, and he just made it very clear that he wanted to play baseball, and he got right in there and shocked all of us. So
that's awesome.
When he gets his mindset to something, he's going to do it. He really wants to play football, but I kind of got to draw the line somewhere.
That is definitely hard in our situation. If you don't know anything about MPS 1, it affects really all parts of their body. It affects them physically, but also there's some, I guess I'll say, sensitive areas, their C-spine and their spine. And so that is a little bit risky for sure. And we've definitely been told no contact sports.
Yep.
So that is
I will say
really
his
hard.
daddy told him that if he worked really hard to become a kicker, that he would make an exception.
That would be awesome. That will be a story.
So Jake told him that if he worked really hard and learned how to kick, that he would let him play football in middle school, but he was never allowed to play where it would be like him being on the line. So,
oh my gosh,
he knows the stipulations, and he knows that he has to work hard if he wants to play football.
And that's what you have to do with these kids too, though. Give them something to look forward to, and
we never want to limit Jude. Like that was our biggest thing with him being diagnosed so late in life is he lived a life where he wasn't limited for so long, and then all of a sudden there's these limitations. So you have to limit it with boundaries. So it's one of those things that we're like, okay, you can do this, but this is what it has to look like. And so far we've had no pushback.
That's awesome.
He's not going to be a quarterback. We've told him he's not going to be a quarterback. So he better get to kicking.
Well, let's talk a little bit, I guess, about since he was late diagnosed. So how did you get here? So how was your pregnancy?
I found out I was pregnant the end of May 2015, right before Jake and I's 1-year anniversary. And we just knew we wanted a baby. We wanted a baby. We had been together for a few years, and we were ready to start a family. So we found out we were pregnant, and normal pregnancy scans were all good. Fun fact, Jude is the first grandchild on both mine and Jake's side of the family. Wow. The first great-grandchild on both sides. And the first, niece, nephew, anything on both sides. So
everybody was loving this
everybody
baby.
Was so excited. We had not had a baby in the family in so long. So, of course, as soon as he was born, the swelling started. And, he was rotten. So he had a normal infancy. Of course, we went to the checkups. He always hit his milestones. He sat up when he was supposed to sit up, crawled when he was supposed to crawl, pulled up, walked. Everything was on point, like a healthy child. Another thing is he doesn't have the facial features. If you look at him, he doesn't have the facial features of an MPS patient. He doesn't have the thickness, really anything like that. He has the short neck, the short stature, but other than that, he just doesn't present as a typical MPS patient. And looking back, that really the only thing that could have been an indication was at his 9-month no, this was a sick visit, a 9-month sick visit. He had something viral. He had a fever. And we saw a pediatrician that was not our regular one, and she asked us if we knew he had a heart murmur. Of course, we said no. She was like, well, it could be where he has a fever. Sometimes that just makes it a little more pronounced. So we followed up with our regular pediatrician, and he was like, it's just very mild. He's like, but a lot of babies have a mild murmur, so we'll just keep an eye on it. And that's what we did. We kept an eye on it. He walked. He started talking, doing all the things. And I was a little bit late getting him in for his 4-year well visit. Supposed to be in December. We went in June of 2020, middle of COVID. By this point, I was pregnant with my second son. And we go in for our visit, and his pediatrician was mine and my brother's pediatrician growing up. So, I mean, he's just family. My mom worked with his wife in labor and delivery. He's like family to us. And, I mean, he's the best of the best, in my opinion. And so he's looking over Jude. I mean, I'm all excited. I'm having my second baby, we're just chit-chatting. He just looks at me and he goes, is this as far as his arm extends? And he's just, how they stretch him out and everything. And I was like, I guess. And then he was like, okay. Continues on. He's like, is this as far as his leg will extend? I was like, I think so. He's like, so he's like not pushing on me or anything. I was like, mm-mm. And that's when it hit me like, what's he indicating here? And he said, well, I'm not saying that there's something wrong. He said, but something isn't completely right here. I want you to go see an orthopedist friend of mine. He said that he's not necessarily just pediatric, but he's really great and he's in the Vanderbilt realm. So I want you to go see him. And so I left in shambles thinking I was the worst mom ever for not noticing this about Jude.
Mom guilt.
Yeah, immediately. But in reality, like I said, he was the first baby in our family forever. To me, he was normal. Yeah. He was fine. He checked all the boxes. There was nothing he couldn't do. And we went to that appointment, and the orthopedist, he agreed that what was presenting was not normal, but he couldn't pinpoint what it is because literally the only symptom that was there was joint stiffness. So he referred us to the orthopedist at Vanderbilt Children's, which was Dr. Martis. He's still our orthopedist today, and I can sing nothing but praises about him. He is the most patient man. He has the patience of Job. I swear he does. We went and saw him. And when he assesses your child, the room is completely quiet, and he is just honed in on that child. And he is looking for everything, and he listens. He's one of the very few specialists that I felt like we went to that listened to our concerns. But he was like, okay, I think I'm from here going to refer you to genetics, and we're going to start there. Just do a basic workup, a genetic panel. And then I'm also going to send you to rheumatology since it's his joints, which that made sense. So we went to genetics, did that. Nothing. They were really focusing on arthritis here because they're just seeing it in his joints. So they really did just that panel to focus on like juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So then we go to the rheumatologist, and I realized how much, I don't know if anybody's ever been to a rheumatologist, but they like their blood work. They love their blood work. So they're doing blood work, test after test, and everything's coming back fine. There's no signs of inflammation, and they keep asking me about flare-ups. I'm like, he's never had a flare-up. There's never been a red spot. There's never been like heat or pain, anything at this point. And finally, I just got fed up. I was like, I can't do this. I can't let them poke him anymore. It was starting to turn into a race of like, who's going to diagnose him first? And to see your child go through that and become just another number for a doctor, I couldn't do it. So by this point, I was very pregnant. And I was
over it.
I was like, okay, I can't keep holding down Jude for blood work and getting nowhere. We had started therapy, so we stayed in therapy, like PT, OT, and bracing. We had started bracing at this time, so they were putting him in AFOs and SMOs, and hand braces because of the contractures in his hands.
Is the rheumatologist, is that like a pediatric?
Yes. It was a pediatric rheumatologist through Vanderbilt Children's. And she was wonderful. Like, don't get me wrong. She was wonderful. But you could very well tell that she wanted to be right. And I'm like, I just can't do this. And you're like, as a mama, you know.
Yeah.
Like in your gut when you're in the correct place.
Right.
And when you're doing the right thing for your child. And I was just like, we're not going any. I canceled all appointments. I said, we're not doing anything else. I was like, we're going to enjoy our new baby. We're going to let Jude be a big brother. We're going to continue therapies. And hopefully at some point we can get somewhere. And then that's where I started to try to diagnose him myself. You know, since I have a degree in WebMD.
Oh, my sister. Yes.
I mean, I've got a WebMD degree by now. I would just stay up at night and Google, trying to, because by this point, the pain had started in his joints. He was having leg pain. His feet hurt. He was waking us up at night with the hand pain because of the contractures. They were getting worse. And it was just, we were doing nothing because that was a choice I made. And then I'm like,
but you were overwhelmed.
I was overwhelmed.
And you knew you weren't supposed to be there, but you didn't know where you were supposed to be.
No, I had no idea where. And funny story, one night I landed on Hunter's syndrome.
Yeah.
Which is
MPS
a form of
too.
MPS. And I was like, this could be Jude. This could be. And I mean, looking back now, I didn't go anywhere with that, but I was like, I was so close. I was so close. Yeah. I woke Jacob one night just squalling, like shaking the bed, crying, and scared him to death. And I was just holding Jude, and he was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, he's going to die because we can't figure out what's wrong with him. He's going to die. And he was like, you don't say that. He was like, we don't say that. He's not going to die. He's fine. He's fine. And like, that's just an example of the toll it takes on you whenever you're fighting your mental health, you're fighting the doctors, you're fighting your child's symptoms. And like, you just want to make the right decisions. And I was just at that point, our prayer was a diagnosis. I just wanted him diagnosed. Just give us an answer of what it is so that we can treat him.
Yeah.
Like, just stop his suffering. Like, who cares what it is? Just give me an answer so he can stop laying here and suffering in vain is basically what it seemed like. And that's what my gut just told me. I'm like, we need to go back to ortho. I called my mom, who's an RN, and I said, I think I need to go back to ortho with Jude. She's like, what's telling you that? And I told her what I thought. And she's like, I stand behind you. And she and I went to the pediatrician together, and I asked him for a referral back to ortho, even though the ortho had he's like, I don't think it's anything ortho related. Let's wait 2 years. You check back in with us in 2 years. You know, the typical every 2 years, every year. So he gave us, he listened. That's one thing, is he listened to us.
That's what I keep hearing you say. It gives me chills.
Yeah, our pediatrician, he listened. And he gave us that referral that we asked for. It didn't have to be his idea. He just said, here, go do what you think you need to do. And we went back to ortho. Of course, Dr. Martis walked in. He's like, what are y'all doing here? He was like, it's not even been a year, and I told y'all to wait 2 years. He's like, is something wrong? And I said, it's getting worse. I was like, his joints are getting worse. The pain is worse. I was like, and in my gut, I feel like this is where we need to be. I was like, I've prayed about it, and this is where we need to be. And he was like, okay, I'll check him out. And he's like, I do agree. His measurements were worse and observing was worse. He's like, I'm going to take an x-ray today in office. And he did his right and left hand up to his elbow. And I'm going to send you this picture because I feel like, this was a turning point in Jude's diagnosis. That x-ray, we sat in the office. He brought that x-ray back, and there it was, built up between the radius and the ulna, like on the bone in between it. And now we know that it was the gag buildup in between. And he was like, I'm going to send y'all for full body x-rays today. He said, and then I'm going to send you to genetics again, and we're going to do a different panel. And he was like, and he said, way to go. And he's like, way to follow your gut. And like, that was the first time I felt validated and didn't feel like a crazy person, Like, another huge thing is Jude wasn't tested at birth. He was born in 2015 in the state of Tennessee. He was not tested in his newborn screening. So he was not screened. So we were pulling at straws. We didn't know what this could be. We were literally pulling at straws. So in the full body x-ray, of course, he did have the oar-shaped ribs, which is another characteristic. And that's nothing we would have been able to tell from the outside. And when you've got a kid as resilient as Jude, they don't show many limitations.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that left everybody scratching their heads. But no, we went to see his geneticist again, who is still his geneticist today, Miss Chelsea Lauderdale. She's been great. She has supported us in going outside of state, things like that. She has really, encouraged us to do that, get second opinions. Like, she wants that. She was like, if you go there, then that means I have more. It gives me more to learn, like other peers to work with. And so she's been great. But we went there. Jude had his genetic panel done. Another poke. A genetic panel done specific to metabolic
autosomal
disorders. And then Jake and I, of course, had to do ours too. And then now granted, remember, we started this in June of 2020. Jude got his formal diagnosis. I believe it was December 8th of 2022.
Wow.
And
that is unfortunately a kind of typical diagnostic journey. It's a lot of things that's been talked about in the
he was about to turn 8
medical world.
Yeah, he was almost 8
December of 2022.
Yep. So you know what happened after that. You know what happens after you get that diagnosis. Of course, he does not qualify to get a transplant where he is attenuated. The only option is ERT. I remember that day that we got the diagnosis, and Miss Chelsea looked at Jake and I, and they were like, she said, his and your life, y'all's life, will never be the same. And I didn't take that seriously. I thought, you're right, it'll never be the same. Yeah, this has changed everything. The entirety of that statement did not hit me until 2 months later. When that's when real life happened, whenever ERT started.
It takes time to process, and she's mentioned stem cell transplant and ERT. So one of the treatment options for MPS 1, depending on your severity, depending on age, a few different things, is a bone marrow transplant, stem cell transplant, or enzyme replacement therapy, which we call ERT. And ERT is a man-made enzyme that is intravenously a weekly treatment for the rest of your life, and it's approximately a 5 to 6 hour infusion that you take every week. And so just to give reference and what that ERT is what she's talking about. But yes, it takes time to process what you've been told,
because
and
it doesn't
takes time
hit
to put
you.
the
You're
next step forward depending on.
Because still, here's Jude sitting here in front of us, his regular self. And so, yeah, we get this diagnosis, and we ate Cracker Barrel on the way home. Like, I have a picture of the day of his diagnosis that I always like to put on his infographics because it was him sitting at Cracker Barrel, leaning across the table, grinning at me after we had just gotten his diagnosis. And I was like, I typed it up and I sent it to all of our friends just so they were aware of what had happened that day and the news we had received. And looking back at it, I was like, I was so clueless. I literally knew nothing.
But you were so excited for a diagnosis.
It was the most, I was like, it was the most, I don't know, painful relief I've ever felt in my life.
Yes.
Because our prayer had been answered and she was diagnosed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, that was the hard diagnosis. And like, I don't know. I think I was just like living in the adrenaline of the moment. Like, yes, finally. It was like we had reached the finish line that just turned into a starting line.
Yeah.
Like.
But also what you said is so true, that the feeling that I'm not crazy, you know, like that somebody else sees I'm not crazy. Like, you knew deep down your instinct that something was wrong and you had to keep going. But there's
it was the validation of, okay, we've got him diagnosed, we can treat him. But it wasn't the realization of my child has been diagnosed with something that will follow him throughout his entire life. That didn't hit me. I don't even think it hit Jake.
Yeah.
And my aunt, I'm really close with, we're not far apart in age. She talks about when this showed up on our radar, like that it could possibly, this was after we had left Dr. Martis's office that day and we were looking at this could possibly be MPS 1. We were waiting on results to get back from the genetic workup and everything. They left, she and my parents left for Italy that following week, and she said that she cried every night in Italy because just thinking of what Jude's life and our life was going to look like. I said she was feeling all of my feelings because I was just still like, it's a high almost of living in this, okay, we're almost there. We're almost there. And I not let myself be emotional about it. I still rarely let myself get emotional about it because there's not much I can do about it now.
Same.
So, yeah, she says that, I said, did you really cry? And she was like, I cried every night thinking about y'all's life.
Oh.
But that's just the kind of support system we have. We have a great support system. But no, after that, Jude received his first ERT, infusion on February 28th, Rare Disease Day.
That is so iconic. I'll never forget that.
And that's how God works. I mean, we didn't plan it that way. We didn't even realize that Rare Disease Day was a thing. We were so new to it. So yeah, he received his first infusion. We all wore our zebra print and we went, minus Jake. I could not get Jake to wear his zebra print.
Come on,
still
Jake,
to this day.
Really? Okay, maybe we can do a cow. Maybe we can.
If it was cow print.
Represent the zebra.
And we were still coming to terms with all of it. And I mean, I don't want to speak for Jake, but I mean, he and I, of course, have talked about this. He had a hard time coming to terms with the fact that there was anything wrong with Jude. That was something that was hard to admit. You know, dads, I feel like they've got a lot of pride. I mean, they have a lot of pride and they've got to act tough. But he had a hard time. So, of course, me and Jude went in our zebra print, and he's like, I don't like that, Lauren. He's like, I don't like it. Don't call him Rare. Don't call him Rare. And I was like, but he is.
Yeah.
And he's, of course, now here we are a few years later, and Jake he's been able to process that, and he understands, like, Jude is rare. Jude is special. Jude has a story to tell. But it's hard to come to terms with, you've got all this planned in your head.
Yeah.
When your child is born, they're going to go do this. They're going to play football. They're, like we talked about, they're going to play football. And then all of a sudden, your visions change, your dreams change, and their futures, like what you think their future is going to look like, it changes. I don't know about you, but
you're so humble with the small things.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Oh, that one entirely. It humbles you.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I mean, I already think of like Jude's future wife. Like, I think of that, and I think of Jude's future whenever he's not under my wing anymore and sitting in the same room as me, getting his infusion every week. Like, that's hard to grasp.
Yeah.
Like, when they're old enough to do this on their own. Because that's what, ideally, that's what you want. You want them to grow up and be independent adults and to be able to take care of this on their own. But at the same time, we've fought tooth and nail and been their voice. And one day, but that's our goal, is to raise them to have that voice.
And you've done that well. I've seen videos of Jude singing in church.
He does love to sing.
So just even in that situation carries out to other situations, being able to use his voice and whatever that looks like.
At the end of the day, you just want them to, I mean, my prayer is that Jude uses this to glorify God always. And I mean, that Jake and I never take it for granted, and that we use this situation to praise God and to glorify God in every situation, because we wouldn't have come this far without him, like, entirely. I mean, we've got a group of prayer warriors. And I guess this is a good time to talk about what we call Jude's
that's what my mind was thinking.
Little prayer group. It is Jude's Hallelujah story. And it started with Jude loving the song Raise a Hallelujah. Jake took a video one Saturday of them in the tractor, and here's Jude in the little buddy seat singing Raise a Hallelujah at the top of his lungs. And like, it hit me. I'm like, that's it. Like, this whole everything in his life is meant to raise a hallelujah and to glorify God. And I fully believe if God wanted to heal Jude today, he could. But I don't think that's the purpose he has for his life. I don't think that God gave this to, well, it's hard to say that God gave this to your kids.
It is very hard to.
But I don't, let's say it this way. God didn't make Jude this way to not serve him and to not bring others to Christ through him. And of course, we can see that, but it's making them see that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's Jude's Hallelujah story. Is what we call it. We've got a lot of big plans this year to hopefully get the ball rolling. But it's just a way to say that times are hard. This is one thing I say a lot. Times are hard. And times, I mean, things get dark. But God is great. Times are hard. God is great. Times are dark. God is light. And so I don't see how people go through it without
I don't either.
faith. Because, yeah, hearing your kid in the back seat headed home from a 6-hour infusion in a children's hospital and singing praise songs at the top of their lungs, yeah, that's a testament.
It is.
And so, yeah, that's where we're headed with things. Is his story's bigger than MPS 1.
I love it.
It's bigger than that. He's not, and that's another thing, that we've always pushed, is MPS doesn't define him. He is still a 9-year-old boy, and he's not MPS. He's Jude, and he's capable of anything he wants to do. And
Except be a quarterback.
Except be quarterback. He's not getting tackled anytime soon. He might get tackled by his brother, but we'll just keep that in the backyard.
Oh, gosh.
But we don't ever want to limit him. If he wants to grow up, his current thing is he says he doesn't need to keep good grades. And he doesn't have to make good grades in college either, because he's going to the NBA.
Hey.
Yeah. He just reached 4 foot, by the way.
He should talk to Ryan. That's funny. It's definitely one of those things like Ryan knew school wasn't for him and he became a career firefighter. He was like barely graduating. Barely graduating with a 1.8, but and that was, meeting Ryan was probably the first time because that was like kind of hounded in me,
Oh, yeah,
go
me
to
too.
school. And y'all living the farm life and stuff. I mean, there's just so many things out there that you could do to be successful. I'm not saying he should.
I know. And my husband, like, he runs his dad's trucking company. He's had it for the last 35 years. So Jake and his brother, they operate that now. So yeah, I was like, Jude, I fully support you going to the NBA. But can we please at least try to pass the 3rd grade?
I can't wait to continue following y'all. I mean, you've talked about him doing the baseball, talking about doing the kicking, and then you're talking about the NBA. I think of some of the other patients I know, and that was their dream.
Yeah.
And we think of it, playing the NBA, but then 20 years from now, you seeing them on the court being the announcer, or they're the...
Oh, like 100%. I was like, I can totally see him being a stats guy.
Yeah.
Like a sports analyst.
I don't know.
Whatever. I don't know. Jude knows more about sports than I do. I'll leave it up to him. But seeing their passion and knowing that it may not look the same as it looked for, Michael Jordan's really the only one I can think of. It may not look the same as somebody like that, and I think of Ryan Dant.
Yes.
All the time. Like, we love Ryan and we love the dance, and like, he loves baseball.
Yes.
And I've said before, I was like, we've got to get Jude and Ryan together because I feel like they could really strike up a conversation.
Maybe Ryan could come in May. He was there at Disney.
Was he really?
So him and Mark were both there in December, but that was hard to go the week before Christmas.
I wanted to so bad, but I did Disney by myself with a bunch of girls back in the summer. And whenever I went, I was like, I had the best time. My kids would hate it.
Yeah, it is.
Jude is scared of his shadow. Jude is scared of...
Really?
Yes, Jude is scared of heights. He is scared of anything that goes too fast. Anything like that.
So did he hate Dollywood when we all went? Or
No,
did
he liked Dollywood.
Being with...
Oh, he loved Dollywood. But he liked watching everybody else ride those rides.
Good.
He fully loves...
Not good, but...
Yeah, he loves watching everybody else on those.
Good.
And... But I was like, Jude would hate it. Jesse would hate it. Because Jesse's wild. Jesse would like it. But it would just stress us out keeping up with him. And I was like, I wanted to so bad. I had made it a goal. I was like, we're going to Disney. And then after my visit, I was like, that just sounds miserable to go with my 2 kids. Like, that sounds miserable.
I agree. So we actually only ended up on that trip. So what we're talking about, the National MPS Society covers all MPSs, and they had their 50th conference. Actually, it's their 50th year, but it was the 38th annual conference at Disney, and they do Disney every 5 years. And so we went. It was the week before Christmas, so Disney's crazy anyways.
It is.
And so we went with big intentions, but Lauren knows me so well. She is my soul sister from another mother.
We're the same person.
And it got so overwhelming.
It's
crazy
hectic.
Things were happening. So I was like, I cannot make another decision. So even though we had full intentions, thinking we were going to Disney, we got there with no tickets. Like, we're just going to let the time lead us. So the only thing we ended up doing was on that Wednesday, we went to Epcot. But other than that, we did not go to the theme parks. And really the same.
Y'all are really like us. Like, Kennedy is like Jude. Like, I'm sure she loves them, but I mean, she's still recovering. So there's certain things that she's probably not comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
She just wants to be with the people. She wants to be with the other kids.
You could take him to the hotel and put him in the indoor pool and tell him that's Disney, and he'll believe you.
Same. And so it's even more magical when we say MPS doesn't define them, but it's something special when the MPS 1 kids get together and nobody's shy. It's like they've known each other forever, and they don't have to explain anything, and they have the best time. And so that's what my kids want to do. Wherever a group of people, MPS,
like Dollywood,
were, that's where they go.
Jude just wanted to be with Luke the entire day. He just wanted to be with him. He has said that he's missed him like 1,000 times since.
Have they
delivery.
talked since?
No, I don't think we have.
Oh.
I know. But yeah, that was so much fun. But once again, I'm going to set a goal that hopefully we can be at the conference this year.
It's in Colorado. Have you seen
Oh,
that?
then yes, because I could totally get Jake to Colorado.
I want to say it's the first week in August. I'm thinking.
Okay. Oh, it's when?
The first week in August.
Okay, I'm going to be gone.
Maybe August 6th through the 9th. Does that change it?
No, I'm going to be on a bachelorette trip.
How do you have August planned? I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Because my brother's getting married this year, and we have our bachelorette trip that week. So
that blows my. So we aren't sisters on that level because I'm definitely not a planner. Like the week before, like
I would not
know.
necessarily. I didn't plan it. Okay, I didn't plan. Like I was told I had to be there. So
okay.
But okay, we'll try for 2026.
Man,
I know
that stinks
because that's where I'm thinking we can get Jude and Ryan connected at one of those. But yeah, no.
Or go with us at the end of February. Or go to.
Where are you going?
I don't know if he's going, but Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill in Washington. I'll have to ask.
That's a good idea.
It's coming up though.
Yeah, that is coming up. But it's like, no big deal. My cousin lives in D.C. He works at the Capitol.
Are you kidding me?
No. And
you better be there. Even if you're out there by yourself.
Jake has been dying to go to D.C. too and stay with my cousin. So.
Well, just you two go. I don't know.
Are you taking your kids?
No, I'm not. Probably not this year. So Kennedy's having surgery on the February 13th. So I don't know that she'll feel like it. But the hard thing for us is, down there, accessibility. Yeah. So down there is Uber or the scooter so it's a little bit.
Lots of walking too.
That's the issues too. You plan when you're in our situation is to have a stroller that goes into Uber and, it makes it hard when you have different accessibilities. And so
everything's hard. Like even the zoo is hard with Jude.
Yeah.
And we don't have a wheelchair. I mean, we have one now, but it's just one of those, like he prefers to walk, but he just gets so tired. I mean, his feet start to hurt, his legs start to hurt. So we've got to figure out something better because I don't know if he'd feel comfortable sitting in the wheelchair. He'd probably be more of a wagon fan. But still, even with wagons and strollers, that's hard to navigate some places.
Somebody told me that Disney quit letting wagons because of space, and so many people were bringing wagons in. But sure, I feel like I've seen people with wagons in there, but everybody's starting to do the wagons.
Well, I've not gone through the process of making like the handicap accessible things for Jude.
That's another thing.
That's one thing it's hard to come to terms with because he is so capable. But at the same time, he does have limitations. And that's with Jude. Or one big thing with Jude is even though he doesn't have those physical, like the physical whatevers that go with MPS, he does have a lot of the physical, like the symptoms, like the physical symptoms. He may not have the characteristics, but he has the symptoms.
Gotcha.
Lots of, one thing, this kind of leads into his surgery over this past summer. That was our first hospital stay that we had ever done. Of course, he had a port placed.
Wow.
But that's another thing that's so different about our situation. And I see everything that these parents go through with their newborns and things like that. And I get guilt because we have not faced anything near as difficult. We've faced difficult things, but nothing near as difficult as seeing your infant go through something like that. And I just can't imagine. It's almost like God was protecting us from that, but at the same time preparing us for what we face now. But Jude had spinal decompression this summer, which is a common one among the MPS community. So
okay, before we go into that, let's back up to
they're cute.
How old's Jesse now?
He is 4. He just turned 4.
So the age Jude was.
Yeah. Oh.
When you started looking, though, I guess. I was going to say when he was diagnosed. So he wasn't diagnosed till he was 8.
He wasn't diagnosed until he was the month of his
7.
birthday. He was 7.
He was 7.
Almost 8. I took Jet, like, I made a TikTok about this. Sometimes I'll make TikToks. I'm not very good at it. But I took Jesse for his 4-year well visit back in November. That was the most surreal. Like, the anxiety was, even though I knew Jesse did not have MPS 1. He was screened. I mean, he was born in 2020. It was on his screening. He may be a carrier, but he does not have
a trigger.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, that morning, I was just...
Wait, hold on. You said he was...
Jesse was screened.
But he wasn't flagged.
He wasn't flagged.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you said he may be a carrier, in my head,
like,
for
he
some
could,
reason I was
yeah,
thinking.
he could be a carrier, but he wasn't flagged as the active.
Okay.
But yeah, that morning headed to that appointment, like, all the emotions were there because I was like, I have been here before. I've been in this exact spot. And I was just happy-go-lucky taking my kid to his well visit that day. I've been to a 4-year well visit before, and I left with a changed life. And, like, it was so surreal. It made so many emotions surface. And, yeah. But Jesse is very healthy and so far shows no signs, symptoms, whatever.
But those are things that a lot of people don't see, like you saying that. Like, it's a trigger, like something 100%. That to somebody's like, she was taking her kid, to a doctor's visit. But those feelings, like I can feel it right now sitting here in my soul, what that feels like when you have a trigger like that you can't explain to somebody.
I walked in that day without a care in the world. And then I left that day with the burdens of the world on me. Like, that tiny, simple little appointment changed my life.
Yeah.
Changed my child's life. Changed my family's life. And so to revisit that and to just, it was so different, but so the same. And I expressed it to our pediatrician, same pediatrician. I was like, we've been here before. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, 4-year visit is where you sensed Jude's first symptom, like where you noticed it. He was like, you're right. And I was like, this has been a hard one. And I mean, yeah. It's so, and that's another thing that's so hard about having a child with a rare disease and a child that has a normal lifestyle. Like, it's totally different. But it's still even hard with letting that your child without the disease, giving him a normal lifestyle, because everything's different. Jude gets a lot of attention. Jude gets a lot of one-on-one time with us. I mean, when we go to appointments, things like that, that's a lot of one-on-one time. And we have seen, and that's something our pediatrician told me at one of Jesse's appointments. He said, I want you to be sure to always stay conscious of how you treat Jesse and the attention you give him. He said, because his brother being in the situation he's in could affect him too. And, like, that's never left me. And so you do have to be very conscious of it. Jude gets to do a lot of really cool things. Like, he got, I don't know if you saw this, where he got to go out on the football field. We have a county rivalry. We've got Gordonsville High School and Smith County High School. And Jude got to go out and do the coin toss. He was an honorary captain the night of that game. This is funny, but Jake graduated from Gordonsville High School. I graduated from Smith County. So technically, we are rivals, even though Jude goes to Gordonsville. And I really don't see, I love everybody on both sides. But it was just so neat to see him walk out there and both sides of the stands, like, standing up, cheering him on. He got to run through the run out sign, go through the tunnel, all of that stuff. It was the best. It was like the best night ever. He got to wear a coaching shirt and everything. It was so much fun.
That is so
It was
sweet.
so much fun. And then, of course, he's thrown the first pitch a few times. He was also an honorary player in a Wizards game not long ago at his school. But he gets to do a lot of special things, and we just have to be very careful with Jesse because he does tend to get a little jealous, and so we have to make sure he feels special too and do special things with him. Because it is hard. It's hard, especially with a 4-year-old. They don't understand. Yeah. He doesn't see Jude. He doesn't visualize Jude as any different than him.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know that he ever will. And I hope he never does. That's another thing. I hope he never visualizes Jude as anything but his brother. Yeah. So we just have to be really careful with that. And that's one thing that I didn't think about whenever Jesse was born.
Well, you talked about that. I would love to have an unaffected kid. And we've talked about, we've talked about lots of things.
Oh, yeah.
But, one thing that you talk about when you're doing that is how does that affect that kid? We already have 2 that both need all this attention. They have all these appointments, so how.
One way I've looked at it too is like, Jude will always have a protector. He will always have Jesse in his corner, even though they fight. Like
they should.
Like typical brothers do, even though, like, Jude will never fight alone.
Yeah.
Because Jesse has a fighter spirit in him. He's
a pistol.
For every gentle characteristic of Jude, Jude is such a gentle soul. You can look at him and he'll be like, I'm sorry. Jesse is not. Jesse's complete opposite. And I was like, God really said Jude's going to need a Jesse. And Lauren's going to need more medication. And patience.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, it's like you said, like you think about having Jake and I's dream. This is something that I've really struggled with. I don't know about you, but when Jake and I married, we wanted 3 kids. And we were not done with Jesse. And then when we found out everything, of course, we still didn't know anything when Jude was diagnosed. Like, we didn't comprehend even half of it. But now that we know what we know and we know the chances, I mean, I just don't know that of course, it would have to be IVF, but it almost makes you feel selfish too, because it's like, I'm so blessed with the 2 babies that I have.
I know.
And I told somebody, I was like, if my child wasn't able to be diagnosed until birth, knowing what I know now, I would spend 9 months in torment.
Yeah.
Is what I would do. I mean, just completely paranoid. And that's another thing people don't think of when they're like, you gonna have another? Are y'all done? And you don't want to just open them and be like, well, technically, we'd love to have another one, but it's not that simple. Like, you don't want to dump that on people.
Yeah. And you even talking about chances. So it's a 25% chance. Both mom and dad are carriers of MPS 1. And even with the 25% chance, with my experience, you think, which we didn't plan on having that other one because we didn't want to go through that again. And my journey is a little bit different than Lauren's because my children do have Hurler, which is the most severe. So they have had a bone marrow transplant. So after we went through the bone marrow transplant with Kennedy, we didn't want to go through that again. And surprise, I was pregnant. And so you think 25% chance? I mean, that's so low.
I know.
I have a 75% chance
really
to have a healthy kid. Yeah. And it happened to me twice. And so you saying IVF,
I call
is the
Jesse
only
my
way.
little miracle. I mean, he's my little miracle. And I'm really big on the names of my kids and their meanings. So Jude means praise. And I think I had no idea when I named him. I just liked the name Jude. And I liked the fact that it meant praise. And I was like, of course, I don't want Jude to be praised. But God revealed to me after diagnosis the meaning of his name.
Wow.
I mean, obviously, Jude's name is praise, to bring praise to God. And Jesse's name, so he's Jesse Nat, which is it's a family name, but it's a shortened version of Nathaniel. He's named after Jake's grandfather. But Jesse and Nat combined means gift from God.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That is
so I
special.
fully believe that God knew our heart wanted one more. And he gave us Jesse. And Jesse's unaffected for a reason. And he's our gift. I mean, he's our little miracle.
Yeah.
He's our gift. And I mean, they're all a gift. But I mean,
Are they though?
it depends on when you ask me. If you would have asked me
I'm
at 7
joking.
o'clock this morning while I was getting Jude ready to leave the house, I wouldn't have answered that way.
And I'm sitting over here. You talk about mom guilt. I'm over here, mom guilt. Lauren's like, oh, they're a gift from God. And I'm like, God.
You shouldn't have asked me that last night either while I was helping Jude with this makeup work, okay? You really have to sit and reflect.
Oh, gosh.
But
life.
yeah, it's just one of those situations. I don't know if you ever think of this. Like, how did we make it this far down the family line? And then I ended up being the one
I know.
that had the affected child.
Well, we think me and Ryan are related.
Oh, gosh, Allie, don't say that. I've had the same thought.
We're from Tennessee. We're here in Tennessee.
I was like, I don't think we're related. But two, it's one of those things where, I mean, the chances of my brother or Jake's brothers having a child with MPS 1, like you said, they're so low. But at the same time, I would love for our siblings to be tested, just to know. And then I would also love, of course, Jake's mom passed away in 2011, but I would love for Jake's dad to be tested. Like, if he's a carrier, then we'll know that it came down his mom's side of the family. And then that might be able to help other family members. Same for my side of the family. Like, if my dad's the carrier or my mom's the carrier, then that might help my cousins. That might help future, like, to know, like, what to look for. Like, it's rare, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. And if you are a carrier, then maybe IVF is the best option. And I don't know, just now that I know what I know, I don't want anyone in my family to have to experience the heartbreak and the trials that we've experienced in our journey.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about he got diagnosed in December, so started questioning, really pushing it in June of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
He got diagnosed in December of 2022, right before his 8th birthday.
Yep.
And then enzyme replacement therapy is a treatment option. And so
that was our only treatment option, is what we were told.
That started in
February
of 2023.
Yes.
And so take us kind of from
so
going to that first infusion on Rare Disease Day, like we said, and kind of.
So, of course, there for the first few weeks, I think it was 6 weeks that we did it via IV. And a port's not for everybody. I've seen that. But in our case, seeing Jude stuck multiple times after that needle trauma that we already had from the long diagnosis period, there's only so much numbing cream can do. But whenever you're dealing with blown veins and everything else, like his veins, it was so sad because every vein in both hands was blown by the time we got to port placement time. So he had his port placed in April. It was beginning of April of 2023. And like I said, some people are not for the port, but for us, we were like, this is going to be the best option. So we had the port placed. Another thing is his veins were so blown, they had to do his IV in his foot for that procedure. Yeah. You can imagine how he felt when he woke up and saw that IV in his foot. That was another scream I'll never forget because,
And all these times, he's willing or you're holding him down for these IVs?
It's me, Jake, nurses, everyone having to hold him down. And it's not something you want to do, but it's for their safety.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's for their safety.
And you have to get it done.
Yeah, you have to. There's no choice. And so, thankfully, we had great nurses that could get a good stick on him. There were certain ones that knew exactly where to stick him. And so he had his port placed, and we continued on, used the port the very next week for treatment. We continued on with ERT. We were going to Nashville. We were going to Vanderbilt Children's every week for our infusion, 5 to 6 hours. And we live an hour away during a good time of the day. So we were headed in, having to be there between 8 and 9, typically. Finally, I had to fight and get it pushed back because I was like, we are fighting this rush hour traffic. And there were times when we were just pulling in on 2 wheels because you never knew what lay ahead of you on the interstate. So sometimes we would be 2 hours in the car headed there, 5 to 6 hours in the hospital. And then you're sitting in a room with very sick children. It is not a good vibe in there.
A lot of the times, my experience is when you go to infusions like that, it's chemo.
Yeah.
It's a variety of diagnoses.
Infants in there being accessed and IVs being started, and you're hearing those little newborn cries. And I mean, it just drains you mentally. Like, you leave there so mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
Because you're going through all the emotions. It's just not a happy place to be.
But they're happy. A majority of the time, the kids are so resilient.
Yeah. And Jude's just excited to sit there and play on his iPad. Like, yeah, he's just thrilled to be there and not be at school.
Yeah.
And then, so we're there the majority of the day. And then once we headed home, we were usually headed home in rush hour traffic too. Because it was like a regular work day. You're there for a regular work day. And so we would 2 hours to the house. And I mean, doing that every week. And I'm a firm believer that God knows the plans he has for you. He knows the number of hairs on your head. And he knew whenever he placed me in my family, and he knew when he placed Jake in his family what we were going to need. We have a great support system. But Jake's dad took that leap of faith when Jake was a baby, I guess, and started that trucking company. Jake's 37, and the trucking company has been in business for 35 years. He took that leap of faith. He left a factory job to start a trucking company, and that's who Jake works for now. Jake had to take 0 vacation days, 0 sick days. God laid that all out for us.
And maybe somebody needs to know the name of that trucking company. So
R.M. McCaleb Transportation.
There you go.
Gordonsville, Tennessee.
I don't know why, but
it's a good place to call home. And my father-in-law's famous thing is, let us haul your lettuce.
Let us haul your lettuce.
We haul produce.
I'll never forget that.
Let us haul your lettuce.
I love it.
But no, God had that laid out. Like, Jake was able to go with us to Nashville. I didn't have to drive that alone. I didn't have to fight Jude alone. Like,
yeah.
And we were still able, yeah. And so that was all put in place by God. But we did that. We went weekly until this year. There were only a few times. I mean, you still deal with I got stuck in the snow last year, and it put me behind 30 minutes getting on the road. And I was headed to Nashville. I run in. They're like, I'm sorry, we can't see y'all. And they turned us away. Jude didn't get his treatment that week.
Lauren, I would.
That was the first straw. Because I'm like, I literally could do nothing. Like,
I can't imagine.
I mean, here he is. He's missed a whole day of school. And I have fought tooth and nail to get here. My anxiety's through the roof at this point because I have fought traffic. Jake has had to come pull me out of the ditch. And I get there and they can't see us. And it doesn't matter if you call ahead and tell them your situation. There's a children's hospital. You never speak with a person. You never speak with your nurse. Your number. No matter how good of a relationship you have with your doctors or your nurses, your number. And those nurses, they would have seen him. If it was up to them, they would have come out there and they would have gotten him. Because you got to think, his medicine's already there. He's already on the schedule. For 5 to 6 hours, he's scheduled. And sorry, we can't see you today. It happened one other time. We never made it to the hospital this time. there was multiple wrecks on the interstate. Because, I mean, you're driving through multiple cities. You're driving 50 miles on this interstate. And if anybody's ever driven into Nashville, they understand. It routed us off of the interstate. And then we got on a little side road to get back on, and another wreck happened. And we weren't going anywhere. So I just called and I was like, listen, we're stuck. There's no way. I don't know when we'll get through this. There's been another wreck right ahead of us that just happened. And you can't predict those things. You can leave 2 hours in advance and not predict those things. And they were like, okay, well, we can't see you. So I'd already made it I was nearly to the airport by that time. And so, yeah, we went to Sam's Club. It was the first day of school. He missed the first day of school.
So every situation is definitely different.
Yeah.
But I will not take no for an answer. So I would have definitely,
I was just
asked
furious.
to talk to the charge nurse, them come out to talk to me and say, and go from there.
Unfortunately,
and
in this situation, the charge nurse was not very nice that day.
Even message the admin, because that is.
I was like trying to text. I was texting his geneticist everything I could think of. I was like, because it's not a big deal if they miss one week. But in our situation, Jude feels better when he's had his enzyme. Like, he feels better. He gets grumpy whenever it's nearly treatment time.
He's hungry for enzymes.
Yes, he's got to have it. He gets grumpy and he doesn't feel good and he's sleepy. And, like, everybody always asks, they were like, does he feel bad after his treatment? I was like, no, it's like a burst of energy. Like, yesterday after his treatment, he had basketball practice. An hour later, you would think, okay, he just had a needle taken out of him. No, that kid was running around like.
I love it.
Because you got to think they're loading them full of fluids too. So they feel good. And so, yeah, it's one of those things like you want your kids to feel good.
So just to touch real quick, MPS 1 is a buildup of a substance. It's a buildup of a glycosaminoglycogen, which is a complex sugar, not a sugar that you eat, but just a trash that's building up in your body. So when these kids get the ERT or the enzyme replacement therapy, they are producing enzyme. So the ERT is a man-made enzyme that starts breaking up that trash. And so Jude is missing the enzyme, and so the man-made enzyme lasts about a week. And so that's why when he's at the end of his week or he misses a week or why he feels better is because he's getting what his body needs. Yes. And so just to fill the audience in on that, if somebody's clueless, I know we've bounced around a little bit. It definitely
stinks that has to be a weekly thing, but when you look at the other side of it, like, it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. But no, the whole missing school, that was at the beginning of this school year. That was August. And that's when Jude finally came to me and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore in Nashville. He's like, I'm ready. Because we have always told him that it was an option to get his infusions at home. That was an option. But we weren't going to push it on him. If he was not comfortable not being in the hospital setting, we were not going to push that on him. It's just, I mean, obviously we don't let him call the shots. But in this situation, we wanted him to feel comfortable.
It's a huge thing to give them options when you can, because that is a huge part of the trauma is that they don't have control, they don't have decisions. And so for you to be able to let him lead where you can is not only huge for the kid, but also for the experience, because I also see where I've never really thought about till you just said, like, sometimes it's more convenient for you, but what if he didn't want it at home and now his trauma is associated with home? Yeah. Not necessarily his trauma, but that.
That was a big thing, like separating home from, because a big thing is on treatment day, we have MPS 1. After treatment is done, we don't have MPS 1. We're living our normal lives. Like, we just try to separate it as much as possible to give him that normalcy. And that was when he finally was like, I don't think I want to go to Nashville anymore. He said, I'm tired of missing school. I want to be with my friends. And we knew he'd have more freedom. So that's whenever I started. I sent the message to the geneticist and she got us connected. We started all of that. Lord, that was, even though that was just like a few months ago, that just seems like a blur.
The trauma.
Oh my gosh. Because it was one day at work at the pharmacy, I was on the phone with insurance. It was the day before G was supposed to get his first home infusion. I was on the phone for probably 6 hours that day fighting with him. Like, and I wasn't, like you said, I was not taking no for an answer. He was getting that treatment the next day.
Has it helped you at all? I don't know. I've not worked in a pharmacy setting. Like, do you have some knowledge over different things, like a hand up
so what
with
this,
insurance?
That argument I was having with the insurance was they were saying that the PA had not been approved for his meds. And I said, I was able to say, listen, I'm not an idiot. I'm a pharmacy tech. I know the terminology. I know what a PA is. And I know that it was sent a month ago. So
awesome.
I was like, I can get PAs approved in a day. Somebody's not doing their job. I said, you tell me who's not doing their job and I'll give them a call. And they would constantly like blame it on this department. I said, give me the number for that department. They're like, well, we don't have a number. I'm like, give me a number for somebody that does have the number to that department. I said, I'm not going to stop until you let me talk to somebody in that department. And they were just saying like, I don't think it's made it to the desk. Something. I mean, it was just stupidest things ever. And I did not give up. And finally, I paid out of pocket for his medication. So that because at this point, there was no way he was going to be able to get it at the hospital. I'd already arranged everything. He had no appointment. They had not ordered his medicine. We were done. The only option was for him to get it at home. And that's what I was trying to explain. They were saying that it had been denied. Like the PA had been denied and that they had to resubmit it. I said, this makes no sense. He has been getting this medication for 18 months now. Plus, I mean, maybe longer than that. I said, and it's paid for it every time. So what you're saying is just because we are changing companies who he gets it through, that you're not going to approve it. I said, that makes zero sense. I said, you are telling me that my child, who has no control over this diagnosis, over what his body does not do, can't have a medication because you say he can't have it. I said, no, that's not going to fly. And one guy cried. I'm pretty sure he was crying. Like, I let him have it. Bless his little heart. He was really nice. But he just caught me. He just caught me at the wrong time. And they were laughing at work because I kept going on hold. And then I would storm into the kitchen and shut the door. And they could hear me in there just wreaking havoc on these people. And I'm like, I'm a nice person. I am understanding until it comes to my kid.
Yeah.
And I said, we are their voice. He can't get on the phone and tell him he needs this medicine. It's me. So I paid cash out of pocket for his medicine. You know how much do you know how much Aldurazam costs out of pocket?
Well, when you're saying that, because I'm thinking it's like, I thought it was like close to like $100,000 an infusion. So
it's 11. It's 11,000. And I don't know if they applied a coupon or what, but I did not pay 11,000. I think I had to pay 6,000.
That's probably the insurance rate versus the out of pocket rate.
I paid them $6,000 and I was like, have it on my doorstep. And I said, we'll figure it out later. Somebody can reimburse me later. And so I paid that amount. And then something else. I was headed to school to get him. And the person with the infusion company called and they were like, hold on. No, it was the person with Aldurazam. Because I was also
Santa
talking
Fe.
to, yes, with Santa Fe. She was like, hold on a second. There's one more hoop we've got to jump through. There's one more thing. And I was like, the nurse is on her way. And she was like, just give me a second. And I'm praying the whole way. And I'm like, God, I was like, please, you've brought us this far. Like, you have brought us this far. We're almost there. The nurse was sitting on the side of the road, like off the highway, waiting to get the go-ahead. And we're coming back from Jude's school. I mean, I'm telling you, when I tell you, I was praying the whole way. 30 minutes before the nurse was to be there, they called and they were like, you're good to go. And
can't make this stuff up.
You can't. And so nurse comes on. I was like, how about that, Jude? We can't just do it the easy way, can we? Can't do anything the easy way.
So you've transferred to home infusions. Yes. Did you get to, you got to meet this woman before, or?
No, we didn't get to, we didn't get to meet her. And I was really worried about that. I was like, is this going to be awkward? Like, my mom was a home health nurse for years. So I was like, is it going to be awkward her sitting in my home for 6 hours? She was like, not as awkward as you think it will be. I was like, I'm an awkward person. I was like, you just got to tell me what to do. I don't want to make it awkward for her. But she came that first day, and of course, you're getting to know each other. And Jude was still on the fence because he had built up a relationship with a certain nurse he had at Vanderbilt, and he was not happy. But once again, God works in every situation. And our nurse, her daughter, she's got a condition. I'm not necessarily sure what it is, but she receives weekly treatments too for something. And they knew Jude's favorite nurse because they had gone down there too. And so she was able to sit there and talk to Jude about this nurse because she knew him too. And that helped Jude calm down. And because she was like, I've got to go next week with my daughter, and if I see him, I'll tell him that I know you.
That's awesome.
So it did all work out, and now she is just part of the family. She fits right in. We love her, and if we ever have to have a different nurse because she goes on vacation, I go in a tizzy because I'm like, okay, who is it? What are they like? And Jude's like, what's their name? What do they like to do? Do you think they like this? Do you think they like sports? And two, with our kids, anything that's change, anything that's different triggers. And two weeks ago, the company ordered a different kind of needle, to access the port. It just had a different back on it. That's all it was. Trigger.
Wow.
The nurse was like, okay, we're definitely going to document that we cannot change up the needle on Jude. It was the same size and everything. It just had a different closure on it. And, he lost it.
The trauma is so real.
He lost it.
The trauma gets buried so much. We're so focused on
fighting
the symptoms. Yeah. I actually started today. I thought every time I have to, because I've been arguing kind of with the school, and I don't want to say they're the least of my worries, but I feel like I'm always saying, you can't imagine the amount of people I talk to in a day.
Yeah.
So I was like, every time I have to address something for Kennedy or for rare disease or for MPS 1, I'm going to put it in my notes. And so I just thought this morning, which my phone's not coming on. And so I put on here today, because people that have called, left messages, a sleep coach, because she got a CPAP. So this sleep coach is called. Then the sleep doctor, I can't think of what, it's not ENT, but pulmonary, I guess.
Yeah, pulmonary would be.
They've called. Then you've got insurance, Katie Beckett, physical therapy, the school, the lower extremity doctor. But to get to him, I had to email his nurse. Yep. But then scheduling called me.
Yep.
Then hospital billings called, and then hospital scheduling's called. Plus, I've had to make the airline. So that's today. So it's I feel like the general public is mom life, we're all overwhelmed. And I'm not trying to make excuses,
right. But still, it's being a mom's full time, but being a special needs, a medical needs mom, that's also a full time job.
Yes. And the trauma
And I even said the other day, I was like, if something happened to me, I'm really bad about doing it all myself.
Same.
You're my sister. Yeah. If something were to happen to me, I was like, I need to start writing things down. I've got all these numbers saved in my phone. I've got our Santa Fe rep. I've got all of our different option care, our 24/7 option care. Well, that's Jude's infusion company, by the way. We use option care. And I've got the pharmacy line. I've got the nurse line. I've got all of this in my phone. But I guarantee you that no one knows in what order to call those people.
Yeah.
And I keep up with his medical supplies. Well, I let our nurse keep up with his medical supplies, but I keep up with his medication, making sure that we have enough on hand. We needed a refill on numbing cream the other day. I have that special mixed. His bandages, I have to order those through the pharmacy. I have a certain bandage that I order. There's a certain number you have to enter. Like there's all these little things that you do that no one realizes you do. And
you know, operating procedure.
The behind the scenes. And like right now, Jude's IV pole at home, it needs to be tightened. And I need to ask for help. I do. Because I'm the one that constructed it. And that's why it is the way it is. But I need to ask for help. But I don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
I want to figure it out on my own. But no, as far as like being at home, the main thing, the wonderful thing about being at home doing infusions right now is that I don't have to schedule an appointment. That was a huge thing. I think me and you talked about that at one time. The entire time Jude was at Vanderbilt, I never talked to the same scheduler. There were weeks that would sneak up on us and he didn't have an appointment.
I remember that.
And because they would only let you schedule 6 weeks out in advance. And when you're in the hustle and bustle of getting them there and all of that, you're not aware of everything. And you're not being notified of, okay, this is your last appointment. Things you have to mentally keep up with all of this. And there were a few times, and I couldn't schedule Jude's appointments at the desk there. I think that makes sense.
Wow.
I had to call his geneticist, who had to order it herself.
Really?
Yes, I had to call the geneticist and then wait so long to hear back from her. Finally, she just gave me her cell phone number, and I would text her and be like, we're out of appointments. In the end, she would reach out to the scheduler, and they would schedule him. I was not in control of what days we did it. I was not in control of the times. Nothing.
That would be so hard.
It was so frustrating. It was the most frustrating things ever.
I thought you were going to say, because I get to do laundry.
No.
Think of all the things you get to do at home.
Yeah. No, that's the best thing is that it's a standing appointment. Our nurse is coming on her schedule. She knows she's got her Carthage kids, and she's coming on this day. She'll usually text me that morning, and she'll say ETA this time. And then I know what time I need to leave and go get Jude from school. I text the nurse.
And because, well, for us, and again, we're a little bit different, like, I've got physical therapy, plus you have your regular life, like, stuff just comes up. You know, I might not know till this morning that I have something tomorrow at 12. Right. And so for them not to be flexible makes it
thankfully,
so hard.
Since Jude's surgery this summer, we did not have to continue physical therapy. He's active enough, like 2 weeks post-surgery, they were like, when did you say he had surgery? And so he completely tested out of PT. He's active enough at home that he did not need PT. You can just look outside and he's just running up hills. And you're like, okay, that's his PT for the day. Or jumping on the trampoline. So that, and now he gets OT at school. And he could probably follow up with an OT, but it's not ordered by the doctor by any means. They were like, he's a little exception kind of.
So so we've talked about the diagnosis and everything, and then you just recently talked about that he had a surgery over the summer. Yeah. So how did you get to that point? Like, how did you know that he needed to have surgery?
That's another foggy one because, of course, we're in the thick of it, getting his treatments. And, you know, after they detected, I didn't mention this, after they detected that MPS 1 was the possibility, they send you to just a whole workup. Like, we saw 8 different specialists from September to December. And he had all the things done, from a hearing test to an ultrasound, like all the things. They just want to check off all the boxes. And yeah, he checked all the boxes. So neuro was one we hadn't seen. And we saw the neuro, and they ordered a MRI, I guess. And so we went for the MRI. He had the MRI. I really wasn't expecting to get anything. It was just like, you know, precautionary. We don't have a good solid MRI. We're going to do an MRI. And they called back and they were like, hey, so he's got, it was a syrinx in between. I'm going to get this wrong. I'm going to get my phone out so that I get it right. I think it was between the C1, is that C1, C2, at the top of his spine, at the base of his skull. So where the brainstem meets the spinal cord, he had a syrinx right there. And a syrinx is a pocket of fluid that builds up because it's like backflow from backflow issues. So there's not enough room up there and around in the neck for it to flow, those fluids to flow. So what was happening was this brain fluid was, I'm not saying that right, something up in there was coming back down and creating this little fluid-filled pocket in between that area. So they referred us to a neurosurgeon, and that was probably the lowest point I had ever been in this journey. I mean, like after reading that, I was home alone that night for some reason, but like fell on my knees, just like crying out to God to give me answers and to give me peace. And just because it's like, yeah, it's one thing to just deal with this diagnosis and get treatment, but you're telling me that we're looking at a brain procedure, like a procedure on my child's brain, a neurosurgery. And I was just not prepared for it. I was expecting nothing from it, and to see something of that significance. And that's one thing I hate, is how you can see the results before the doctor calls you. And, my WebMD degree knows everything. And so we get the call. We need to go see the neurosurgeon. We go in there and he explains, he's like, all I really need to do is go in there at the base of the skull. And he said, and just, there's a peg right there at the top of his spine that he needed to shave off to create more room right there. Because, short neck is a huge characteristic in our MPS patients. So that's all he needed to do. Go in there and create more space. Because Jude's vertebrae right there is like just stacked, like kind of crooked. So at that point, Jude had had a sleep study too, and we determined that he needed his tonsils out. He had some sleep apnea going on. And then our schedule for that summer was we were going to try to get his carpal tunnel surgery done. We'd already met with a hand surgeon. After meeting with the neurosurgeon was like, put off all the surgeries until this is done, especially the tonsillectomy. He said the way they lean their head back for that tonsillectomy, he said, it's going to decrease. He said the way that is, he's like, that's going to cut off the circulation right there. He said, and that could be dangerous for Jude. So God put that before us. He knew that's what we needed to do. And it was kind of devastating because Jude was really looking forward to having his hands done. But this surgery took precedence over everything else. So we got the ball rolling. July 1st is when he had, 1st or 2nd is when he did that surgery. They went in the base of his skull. Jude has a mullet, by the way. He's been working hard on this mullet for over a year now. They had to shave part of the mullet.
Oh man.
No. He had just had it permed and everything.
Oh, man.
And so I told, this was, our neurosurgeon was, oh my gosh, what's his name? Hold on, I'm going to have to look at this because he was the best thing that's ever happened to us.
Oh.
If he could be Jude's doctor for everything, I would totally, here, I'm looking because this could help somebody else and I want it to help somebody else if it can. But he goes in there and he does the procedure. It takes less time than we had anticipated. And talk about a panic whenever they called us back. And we weren't expecting to get a call back for another hour.
Wow.
And my mom, she had walked out for a minute. And when we sent her the message that they had called us back, she said that she was ready to rip those doors open and go find him. She was like, I had to go. She said, in that moment, I just knew something was wrong. Well, Jude, the little exception, had just done better than anticipated. And he had done better than anticipated and come out of the surgery doing great. That was a really hard thing to see, though. Have either of your kids ever had anything neuro, like, on their brain? Like,
I don't think so.
So when they first come out of surgery, of course, they're all irritable coming off of anesthesia. But in his case, where he had been face down and he had worked on the spinal cord and the brain stem, Jude's face was very swollen. Eyes were swollen shut.
We have experienced some of that.
And he couldn't understand why he couldn't see. And, I mean, as a parent, it's already hard to see. Dr. Wellens. Dr. Wellens.
And he's in,
he's at Vanderbilt Children's. Dr. Wellens. And, I mean, I could sing his praises all day long. Fantastic. He's the most down-to-earth guy. Jake said, I like that guy.
Approve of.
The next day, when he came to see us in ICU, he was like, okay, I'm going to be off the rest of the day. He's like, my wife's working in the adult hospital. He's like, I got to go get my daughter picked up from summer camp. He was like, but I'll be back tomorrow to see y'all. And we're like, you go. It's fine. We're fine. He's like, but y'all let me know if you need anything. And I'm right here. Yeah, he was fantastic. He fully made it 10 times. But he walked. So they call us back early. Back to that. They call us back early. And we're sitting there. I mean, I could have thrown up. He walks in just like it was nothing. He's like, well, he did great. Everything went beautifully. He was like, he was kind of hard to incubate because of his airway. He said, but I've noted that so that we know it in the future. He said, of course, he was like, and this is something that you instilled in me, was the neuromonitoring. I pushed for neuromonitoring during this procedure because it was a neurosurgery. I was like, I want neuromonitoring. And they're like, well, typically we don't do that for these procedures. And I was like, I want it. So we worked it up. And then, so he sat there and he said, I want to thank you for the neuromonitoring during that procedure.
Oh my gosh, you're giving me chill bumps.
He said, I'm really glad we did that. He was like, he said, you opened the door he said, I can do this in future patients too. So it was a great thing. I need to turn that back on.
And even more than just neuro. So I want to say that she's brought this up. And it's even happened to an NPS 1 patient recently. So any surgery, no matter what the surgery is, over 60 minutes, please ask for neuromonitoring. And you're going to have smaller hospitals that aren't experienced, or maybe they don't use it for that surgery. But this is for NPS 1, and it is crucial. We have had patients that are just going in to simply have hardware removed or simply have a testing done and
a port placement.
Yeah.
Simple things. And
they have become paralyzed. But with the neuromonitoring, they are able to see the signal loss, able to do some repositioning and do some things so that the paralyzation is not forever. So we are huge advocates for neuromonitoring for any NPS 1 patient for any surgery over 60 minutes. And they say 60 minutes because that's unfortunately how long it takes them to get the monitors in place, to get the neuromonitoring set up. And so that's why there's that 60-minute baseline. But even if it's just 60 minutes, push for it. Yeah. Like I said, people may say no, but as Lauren has said many times.
Even if it's not heard of. I mean, even if they have never done it in a patient, pushing for that may open a new door for someone else. Like you never know. And I was glad I had pushed for that. And that's going to be
thankful. And we have literature we would love to send. There's literature on it. So I hate to say so excited that you said that, but we just had another family reach out and say thank you so much for all your advocacy on that, because it has saved her.
I mean, now when he had his port placed, I did not push for it. I was still new to it, and
it's hard to find your voice, like we've said.
And ear tubes, he had ear tubes placed, and I didn't push for it then, just because I was just like, okay.
Narrow airways. That's what I was going to say. That is MPS 1 patients again. So knowing that they are hard to intubate, make sure that your anesthesia team is well aware of that. Sometimes they even have to use fiber optics. So it's very important.
And two, like Jude had already had 2 procedures, like outpatient procedures before this procedure. And it had never been noted that he had a complex airway. So it took to this point.
But maybe he wasn't intubated. He might have had general anesthesia.
It probably was. So, I mean, we know this now.
Yeah.
And it's such a learn as you go type thing too.
It is.
And I've already said this, every patient's different. Every kid's different. And yeah, that was the first big surgery Jude had had. We spent a day in ICU, a day and a half in ICU. That's somewhere I never want to be again.
We hear that all the time too.
Like, I would take a certain way out of ICU just to not have to see it all.
Yeah.
Like, that was an experience in itself. We have so many funny stories that I could tell you about it too. Jude's a very funny patient. Some medicines make him funnier, but he was so funny.
But he's funny in general, right? I mean,
yes,
I feel like that's his personality too.
He's so grown up for his age. Like, so grown up. And he just says things sometimes where you're like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
I think he called somebody a loser while we were in there. And we're like, don't say that. You don't call people a loser. But no, we spent a few days in the hospital before we busted out of there. One reality in a surgery like that is that head wrap. He hated that head wrap. Couldn't eat with it on, anything. You don't get a lot of sleep because, I mean, you're just worried sick about him.
Yeah.
And then that ride home was almost more nerve-wracking than bringing him home from the hospital. I do not know how y'all do that. I do not know how y'all brought Kennedy home from her surgery this past summer, but was it last summer that she had her surgery?
November of 2023.
Oh my goodness, it's been that long?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's like
all the things you don't think about.
It's like bringing home a newborn, and like I'm sitting there and I'm like positioning his head, and he's in there like, like groggy. And you're like, and that's one thing they told us is, my mom reiterated it too. She was like, don't you leave that hospital until you know his pain is controlled.
Yeah. Oh,
or
gosh.
You will turn around and be back there, and you don't want that. And so like they kept pushing. They were like, do you think he's ready? I'm like, if you're going to send us home, because they weren't going to send us home with anything except for just over-the-counter ibuprofen. I was like, y'all have had him on this, and this up until 4 hours ago. I'm not going home unless y'all start weaning him off now, or you at least send me home with enough for 2 days. And thankfully, I only had to use 1 dose of the hardcore meds at home. And then, once again, he's an exception. He was up being himself.
All these
2 days
kids
later.
have ever known is pain. So we hear that a lot, that their pain tolerance is high. But again, I hearing you say, we've talked about the trauma, we talked about mama instincts, and you said, I really didn't know because I was new. It is hard to find your voice.
Yeah.
But once you get 2 years out, you're like, I ain't taking no for an answer.
No.
And so many times we've sat and been like, I knew, why?
Yeah.
But people make you feel stupid or uneducated, or they don't want to listen. And I've heard you say listen multiple times, and it is huge. Just like being kind, for a doctor to listen, even if they don't do anything with it, like knowing that they listened is huge.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't get that experience at just any hospital. Like, I know there's plenty of families who have had issues with certain doctors, and I don't know. I mean, God has just blessed our prayers. We would go into Nashville for treatment days. Like I would say under my breath, God bless the path ahead of us, go before us, and come behind us. And as we would go into that hospital, I just prayed that he was there already and that he would follow us on our way out and be with us the entire time we were there. And I mean, he's just shown his presence every step of the way. But it's like, not everybody gets that. I mean, And we had an appointment with a hand surgeon. One reason why I was kind of glad that we had to do this surgery before we could do hands was because the hand surgeon I had met with, I did not get the warm fuzzies. And that's something I've got to talk to you about later is I think I want to go to Cincinnati and get a second opinion. We've been to North Carolina. We've seen Dr. Munzer and love him. Jake calls him the godfather of MPS. It's really funny.
Yeah, he actually has the Munzer MPS.
Mm-hmm. They didn't have that yet. MPS Center.
MPS Center. Why couldn't I think of Center?
The Munzer Center for MPS, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was going to say Munzer MPS Center, but somewhere along the way, Dr. Munzer's been in it for a long time, so that's who Lauren's talking about.
Yep.
Love,
we saw him.
Love Dr. Munzer.
The summer of after our diagnosis, we went immediately there and saw him. Of course, that's a trek. That's not one of those easy, like, get there and get back. So to go to North Carolina for a surgery, like his hands, something like that, I would just worry about coming back home with him, things like that, in a long road trip.
You will love Dr. Cornwall in Cincinnati.
Yeah. I'm really excited to get up there, and I'm hoping to do like a full week of appointments and do a full workup. Just to have, I will always consider.
And you'll have a scheduler.
What? What?
It's lovely.
But yeah, like North Carolina, ever since we went there and saw everyone, which was a fantastic experience. If you start there, it was great. We got there, we waited for all of 5 minutes. I went to the bathroom and came out, and they had already called Jude. And I was like, oh, okay, this is out of the ordinary for us. So we go in there and we sit down in a big room, and people just started flowing in, like different specialists, nurses, like, like training doctors, whatever you call them, interns, people like just flowing in and genuinely wanted to hear our story and hear Jude's story, hear our diagnosis. And then here comes the godfather. He walks in. He's very tall.
The godfather. I've got to tell him this.
Yeah. Oh, he knows. He knows. He's very tall. And he comes in and he's a big guy, but he's this big teddy bear. Yes. He is so sweet. And he wants to see Jude. And I mean, they just took the time for us. They appreciated that we had come all that way to see them. And they just kept reiterating that they were here for us if we needed anything. Thankfully, we have been very well taken care of and we haven't had to reach out for much. But they were there.
Yeah.
And it was just a good experience overall. But we had considered going to Minnesota. We had considered going to Cincinnati, but we were just kind of, I can't even tell you why we were drawn to North Carolina. But
you feel led. I mean, whatever that is, somebody you've talked to, somebody you met, somebody that's reached out, you don't know what it is.
And once again, that's all a blur. I can't tell you how that even got started, how we got scheduled, none of it. It's all a blur because that whole time was a blur.
Trauma. Yeah.
What trauma?
So what do you have to offer for somebody that's listening that feels like they're in the pits or feels like they don't have a diagnosis, or maybe they have a diagnosis and they're overwhelmed, or whatever it might be? Just words of encouragement.
One thing I will hark on for the rest of my life. Connect with someone, connect with the community. It's out there. Don't try to take this on your own. Don't try to do it by yourself. They tell you it's rare. And then just down the road is you guys. Just down the road is the Nash family, the Sanfords. Like, it's here. The community is there. Connect. Get on Facebook. Get on social media. Connect with those groups. Those groups are out there for not just MPS, everything. And don't go through it alone, because you don't have to. Get involved with the foundation. Become a member. Like, you may not think it has that many benefits, but like during our first year of diagnosis, Carol Bryant with the Pathways, she came to us and met with us and, helped us through so much, navigate so much new. Connect with your Sanofi reps. Connect with whoever the medication or whatever that your child is receiving. Connect with the reps. Connect with that company. don't just sit there and rely on the knowledge that you've gotten from your doctors and Google. Connect with the community that's there to support you. Let them wrap you up. Let them lift you up, because chances are somebody out there needs to hear your story. Somebody out there has experienced what you have experienced, and they're thinking that no one else has. That's my number one piece of advice for anybody.
I agree.
Because you helped us so. You haven't talked about this yet. So, of course, I had no idea you guys were out there. Your college roommate's best friend is sister-in-law's with my aunt's best friend. Like, that's not even but my aunt's best friend, who is also, her son has a rare disorder with size.
I didn't know that.
Uh-huh. And he and Jude are 3 days apart in age. They were born 3 days apart, and they are little besties.
Oh.
We said Jude is his eyes, and he is Jude's everything else, like that Jude cannot do. But they're the cutest together. But she reached out, and she was like, hey, my sister-in-law, her best friend was college roommates with this family, and their kids have MPS. And we were like, what? And so they got us connected, and we started talking, and that's when we realized that we're the same person. And
literally.
But like, I probably would have just remained in my own little bubble with Jude.
It's hard. And there's still families that don't. And I have to say, we did share on social media when Kennedy was diagnosed, but that was because our family's kind of split. We have multiple divorce sides, and we're like, how are we going to keep everybody up to date and not send 8 different text messages?
That's kind of where we started with our group.
So we created the Facebook page. So it was
the
really
prayer group.
Our journey.
Yeah. Ours was the prayer group.
Yeah. And then
Private.
From that, even though we were still vocal, I guess, and sharing our story, it wasn't until 2019 when the MPS Society went to, it may have been Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill. And we went there. And so then that was the first time we literally met other families, kind of like what you experienced at Run for Awareness and Willful for a Cure, that we were like,
if you don't come to that, you need to.
Thank you.
It stays on the calendar.
It's May 3rd, 2025 this year.
Love it.
But it's the first time you feel like family. You don't have to explain yourself.
That
Everybody's helping
like
each
Christmas
other.
For me. That day
really
is like
is.
Christmas. I know you run around like a chicken with your head cut off.
It's
very rare to see you sit down on that day. But last year was the first time that I was able to bring Jake and Jesse with me too. And of course, Mr. Damp was there. Mark Damp. He was there, and Jake connected with him. And I have not seen Jake be able to sit down and connect with someone that fully understood yet. And Jake is my introvert. He's the introvert to my extrovert. So like getting him off the farm to go to something like that. But he is the same way now. He's like, we can't miss it. Like we got to be there. And so, we're hoping to spend more time down here this year. Hopefully we can spend more time.
Did you even stay in a hotel last year?
No, we drove, because remember, Jude was the master of ceremonies at a 5K in our town that day.
So did you went back and came back to Hollywood? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because we did not have it all together that weekend. And like Jake had to come back too. Like, I think it was one of those, he had to come back the next day. He had to sing at church. I'm telling you, that weekend was a run for our money. But
I'm so thankful that you did both and came back to do both. It was
so much fun. So we're hoping we can spend the weekend this year. But connect with your people.
Yeah.
Because we're all in this together. And I've said that multiple times, that this community is special. I mean, I hate that we were diagnosed with this. I hate that this is Jude's life. But I love that we are experiencing it with the people we are.
I agree. And I don't want it to be false either, because for me, I'll say it still feels very lonely. It still feels very isolating. It feels unseen. Don't think that I get to see Lauren every day or get to talk to Lauren every day. And it's not all like
rainbows and puppy dogs.
I wish it was. We say we wish we all lived on a compound together.
Yeah.
But you know that they're there. I know that if I text Lauren at 2 a.m,
I'll
she's
be up,
there.
don't worry.
And she understands. And it's something that I can't explain. You've done a good job with your, excitement and explaining it. But that is one thing that I feel like we have a hard time getting families to get involved, because you do just want to live your life. You don't want to have this disease. But once you make
you
that
want to ignore it, but you
connection,
can't.
then you want it more. And it gives you those resources, whether it be neuromonitoring or whether it be a specific stroller or a seat or a treatment, an out-of-the-box physical therapy, whatever it might be. And so that's one thing I want to ask you too. Like, is there anything, it could even be before diagnosis, what in your life, you're like, these are 5 things I think people should know, a Stanley Cup or a treatment or an off-the-wall therapy that you're like, this changed our path.
That's hard for us because, like, I don't know. Jude is just so, I don't know. It's different because I'm not going to say he's different, but he went so long before being diagnosed that what they said that he was doing was, I'm not going to say the right word here, but he would figure out how to do these things. He was adapting in his own way, and things that were hard for him, he was figuring it out and he was doing it. So certain things that have been really big for us. I don't know if any other kids with MPS experience this, but if Jude has to be in a car for a long period of time, his legs go to sleep. He has a lot of leg pain. So I did my research and I invested in, it's a stool, like a footrest that you put in your car, and it's adjustable for different heights. And Jude's feet rest on that instead of dangling off the seat. And that thing has been a lifesaver. I mean, it started with like road trips that it would happen and I would prop blankets and things up underneath. But then it was turning into our trips to Nashville, like even just an hour to 2 hours in the car. He was experiencing this. And so I was just desperate because I was constantly having to reach back and like massage feet, things like that. So that has been a lifesaver. I forgot to put it in the car when we went to the mountains this past weekend. And, oh yeah, by the way, we came through here. I know. We were running late. Imagine that.
No comment.
We were running late. Imagine that. We stopped at Cracker Barrel over here.
No comment. Oh my gosh.
It was a terrible
I'm
experience.
heartbroken.
It was a terrible
wants to be with the
experience.
community and she does not even tell me when
You
she's
did not
coming
want to
through
be with
town.
us that night,
You
Allie.
don't know how many times this has happened to me.
Yeah, she did not want to be with us that night. We were running behind and everybody was ill.
That's my life.
Oh my gosh.
That is my life.
We were so ill. Yeah.
Literal life.
Jesse punched a cup across the table that night. And I was like, well, good thing we are in Roane County because Allie's going to have to bail Jake out of jail after Jesse punches his
I
cup
would
across.
die if I walked in Cracker Barrel and you were sitting there.
We met your
and I didn't
babysitter
know.
in Cracker Barrel one time.
I remember that.
That was the funniest thing ever. She came up to us and she was like, is this Jude? And I was like, are we being trafficked right now?
Oh my
like, yes,
gosh.
but no, that's just because how small of a world it is.
It
But
is.
no, like we forgot to put the footrest in the car for our trip to the mountains this past weekend, and he had leg pain.
Yeah.
And I was kicking myself. Another big thing is, I guess, this was a big thing. The iPad, like the wedge pillows. It's a stand. It's a pillow, and it's a stand for the iPad. That was a huge deal for us whenever Jude was still getting his infusions via IV. It's a triangle pillow that holds your iPad, and it has different sides to it, so you can lean it back more, you can prop it up more, things like that. And Jude used that whenever he didn't have the free hand to hold his iPad.
That's cool.
And so it was also really good in the hospital because he was hooked up to all of those IVs and he was able to prop it on his stomach and watch videos and movies. So that was, I don't even know what it's called, but they have them on Amazon.
We'll try to link some of these things below.
One thing I found recently is certain cups. So with Jude, he can't squeeze. He doesn't have, because we have not had carpal tunnel surgery yet. He has like zero grip. So it's hard to squeeze certain water bottles and open certain water bottles. You mentioned this, but an Owala cup, things like something he can just hit that button and flip it up. Or he told me this morning that he didn't like his Owala cup because the girls carried the Owala cups.
They have some with characters now.
It's literally orange. It's his favorite color. So he has a Gatorade cup that has a very easy open top. So I'll send that to you too, because that one is very easy for him to just use his finger and push it up.
Okay.
So just like certain things that make it easier for them, things that make it the normalcy, puts that normalcy there. Things that are hard that for them,
yeah,
but make it look like they can do what everybody else can. I need some pointers on this. We've been really trying to get over that hump of him being able to wash himself. So Jude also has winged scapulas, and so he can't get past this. And there, as far as we know, no one has suggested any kind of intervention for that, except for therapies. But we're in the process of teaching him how to wash hair, how to wash body, all the things. So we're looking for something to make that easier for him.
That would be, I don't have experience in that, but we've talked about things about just like a bidet, because Kennedy, for not washing yourself, but using the restroom.
Yes.
We have a hard time about it because it's one of those, you give her that luxury.
Yeah.
So then even more, she's losing that therapy and that motion.
Well,
so it's almost like,
because we've run into that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could make them get one, but he's not going to want that.
I've researched everything. We've therapied it, like all these things, and it's hard.
Well, that's what I was going to say about additional therapy, because you were saying you're not in physical therapy right now. Having physical therapy come to your house, though, they can help you find these modifications or find what's going to work. Or
OT was working with him on that, and it's just like one of those things that he is not a very open kid. So yeah, it's making him comfortable. So me and him have to have these talks, and he tells me what's easier, what's not. IEP. We are more than blessed in our school system. We have not run into a single issue. I mean, I think we could get away with no IEP, but have it there, because you never know. This year could be different from next year. This year could be different from 2 years down the road. If you've got that IEP in place, then they are supposed to follow it.
Yeah.
I know people within our own county, they've had issues with the IEP, but I personally have never had any. Jude's peers, or not peers, the teacher's aides that work with him, amazing. Great communication. Having the communication with your teachers, that's another big thing. But have that IEP or that 504 in place. And
you can have both. I just learned.
Yeah. Oh, you can?
Candy this year just got a 504 and an IEP.
Okay. So far, what I've learned is Jude wouldn't necessarily qualify for a 504 in his case. Not true?
Not true.
Ooh, this is new.
Just with his diagnosis, just with the medical diagnosis is what qualifies for the 504.
Interesting. But yeah, be very specific. They want you to be specific in what you need in the IEP. Like, that's what I learned. They always send home paperwork ahead of time and they're like, be specific in what you need. They want to cater to what's going to make Jude's life easier. And like this year, it's been a tutor to help him catch up on that teaching that he's missing on those days that he has treatments. And his IEP has remained the same for the most part. The little squirt also tested out of PT in school too. He avoids that physical therapist like the plague. She says that you should see his face when she comes on the playground to observe him. She said, I see him for just a flash, and then it's like he goes into hiding because he knows that I'm there for him.
That is so funny.
And she's like, but she went and he was like climbing the jungle gym and everything else. And she's like, he doesn't need me. But just special adoptions, things like that. Thankfully, we have not had to fight for much.
And being specific, hearing you say that you could go with no IEP, I think some people can experience that too, but they say the issue, you know, if something was to
It's
happen
just have it
today
there.
and you had to pick up and go to another school, they should be able to
Have
open that up and know exactly what he needs.
At the beginning of this year, and you can modify it throughout the year if you need to. At the beginning of this year, Jude could not do stairs yet because he was not cleared by his neurosurgeon after his surgery. We allowed him to go back to school, but he could not be on the stairs. He entered the school at a different location, and then he had to take the elevator instead of the stairs because once you get a certain amount of kids on stairs, you just never know. And he had it was like a buddy system of people who would go with him. And it once again, didn't necessarily, they were all very easy to work with. We had a meeting before school even started. I called and I said, can we just have a meeting? I want to go over this. It's going to make me feel better sending him to school after this big surgery. And I walked in, this is summer break, and the room was cram-packed full. We had principal, office staff, vice principal, director of schools, like every teacher, all the aides, the guidance counselor, everyone was there.
It's amazing.
And we even had PE. PE teacher was there. And they wanted to hear what we had to say. They wanted to hear what was going to make it easier on Jude. And not everybody gets that.
No, definitely not.
I mean, it's just, I could not sing their praises enough at the school system that we're in. I wish we could just take everybody.
About mom instincts, and you talk about, you know, everybody being there, and that you called a meeting and that you can modify. I just want to throw in there that you as the parent can call a meeting at any time.
Yep.
And that one thing we did this year, which ours cost, but I think that there are some free resources. There are different resources. But we were so thankful to do an advocate this year.
Oh,
I wish we would have done it.
I've heard of that.
Oh, I wish we would have done it in the beginning, because
I
got to come in and just be mama.
And they advocated for you.
Yes. And so
I was just educated about that over the summer.
Loved her. It was Avo Kids in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Her name's Mindy. And it was has been the biggest blessing, because I would go in, because again, as
makes
us,
me so happy for you.
We're like having to fight for something, you know, and people looking at you.
Be the mom and have that relationship with the teachers too, without having to be the one to constantly be on the phone with them.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed with Jude's teacher. Even after he got cleared with neuro, his teacher was like, keep bringing him to the door. They understand that it's a long walk, and it's difficult for Jude to make that long walk with carrying things. And so they've made it so great for us. And you can ask for silly things. That's another thing. Don't feel like you can't ask.
No backpack on wheels. Teacher to carry your backpack, whatever.
Keeping the books in the classroom. That's one thing that the teacher suggested to me. I didn't think of that. They were like, how about we write in there that he's able to keep his books in the classroom in a special place. That way because he switches classes, starting in 3rd grade.
Wow.
So they were like, he's not going to have to carry his books from place to place. They were like, we'll just keep those in the classroom. That's been very great.
We did that too, but gosh, she has a binder. Just with her binder and her water bottle, her backpack is heavy.
It's like, sometimes I think Jude likes to put stuff in his backpack.
They do. 100%.
What is wrong with you? Okay, that was 4 things. What's going to be my 5th thing?
And you don't have to come up with 5. I just wanted you to throw out some pointers, but you acted stunned, and you had some really good ones.
I know. It's hard because you don't think that you use anything. Like, this isn't like something everyone can do, but like when we built our house, you have to think of every scenario. Wider door frames, a handicap accessible shower, 0 steps. That was a big thing. Like, we got to building our house through, it wasn't a good situation while we had to build our house. So, I mean, after Jude's diagnosis, things got hard. Because whenever you don't have a diagnosis, a specific diagnosis code, insurance doesn't want to pay. bills, and especially with therapy. They only wanted to cover so much therapy, and then we had to cover the rest out of pocket. And that's 2 years worth of medical appointments that you're having to pay so much for. So we made the decision to sell our home. The market was doing good at the time. And we bought the house before Jude's diagnosis, and bedrooms were upstairs, and that just wasn't going to fit the bill for Jude. He needed to be able to get to us at any time. If there was an emergency, he couldn't have come down those stairs in a timely manner, things like that. And so we made the decision to sell our home, and we moved in with my parents, and we started looking for land. So we got some land, and we built the basics. And I was very big on all one level. It's got to be all one level. Door frames have to be wide enough. We need flat ground because Jude can't manipulate the hills the way other kids can. And so our home now is all one level. We have a handicap accessible shower. When Jude had his surgery this summer, we were able to put a chair in the shower and wash him. There was no treacherous things. And so that's something to consider if you are in our situation and you are able to customize your home or build a home. Think of all the things. When we built that house, Jude did not need surgery, but it came. So I was glad that we thought of those things. Have it to where your child's not too far away from you in the house if they need you in the middle of the night, things like that. And so, yeah, even though building our house was not in our plans, it was in God's plan. It was in God's plans. And so, yeah, it worked out. And Jude is on flat ground and plays basketball outside all the time.
Love it. What your story is so inspiring, which I love your attitude. That's a big part of it too, is that you're just, I'm going to get it done, whatever it takes. All in the way
you look at it. You can sit and you can wallow and feel sad for yourself and your child, or you can come up swinging and be ready. Your kids can see the way you act. Like, your kids see it. And if you act like it's the end of the world, then they're going to think it's the end of the world.
Yep.
And so it's all in your attitude and how you choose to view the situation.
So that'll lead me to one of the final questions then. What does rising up mean to you?
It means overcoming everything, overcoming the statistics. The statistics say that our kids are not supposed to live past the age of 12. But through advocacy and fighting for a cure and fighting for these different treatment options, fighting for them to be screened as a newborn, we are defying all the odds. Our kids are living normal lifestyles and lifespans. And so rising up means defying all the odds and showing that there's a life other than just MPS. Like, my child has MPS. There's more to it.
I think that's what happens in the community too. You know, you talk about pushing him to do all these different things when kind of before people would get the diagnosis and there was no hope. You would Google, there was nothing good about MPS. So now people see people living lives. Mm-hmm. So that gives them the courage to go out and live life, because you get the diagnosis, you want to keep them in a bubble. You say they can't do this, they can't do that. So they just sit in there and wither away. And now we're going out and living life, whatever that looks like, whatever ability that is, but we're still living life.
Show the world these kids so that they can see that they're able and that they deserve more than, like Jude, just one treatment option.
Yeah.
They deserve more. Jude has this thing. He asked me the other day, when he first got diagnosed, it was hard I didn't put it out there that you've got to have these treatments the rest of your life. I did not tell him that. Me and Jake both agreed that that would not help him and that his mind probably could not comprehend that. So we went from week to week. We just lived it week to week. And he would say, how many more of these? I would just say, just got to keep going. Got to keep going. How many more do I have to do? Until he finally realized this is long term. And then he came to us and he said, am I going to have to do these the rest of my life? And then that was whenever we let him open the door for that conversation. We didn't just lay that out there to him. But we've started talking about, like, what if one day there was a way that you could just take some medicine by mouth every day? Or what if they changed this and you could get a treatment once a month, and you would only have to miss one day of school a month? Like, we tell him those are possibilities, but we've got to let your story be heard so that these people who are working on these types of things see the urgency, and they see that it needs to be done for people like Jude. And I mean,
I love it. You explain it so well.
Yeah, that's our job.
You've done a great job.
Well, thank you. I've had a good teacher.
Oh, well, you shared some things. We'll put some things in the show notes. I'll put Jude's Hallelujah story. Yep. Is it just Facebook?
There's a Facebook page. I don't think we have Instagram yet. We had the Facebook page. It's public now. It wasn't public at first.
Really?
Yeah. Because, we were kind of, okay, this is the spot where everybody that's been praying, and that, because like you said, the updating thing, that was hard.
Yeah.
Keeping everybody updated and leaving people out. So we started a private page, and then we created a new page that was public because we just had so many people trying to keep up with Jude, and it was amazing. Like, I don't know how many followers we have now.
I love it.
I need to do better at keeping it updated, but it kind of
gets
and it gets monotonous. I'm like, he's not doing anything special like this week. But I guess he is. But yeah, we just try to update it every few months, give everybody an update on where he's at.
Well, thank you so much. I've
Thank
been
y'all for
so
having
excited.
me.
And even when you said you were coming in person, I was even more excited.
I know.
Like,
we were going to try to attempt
awesome.
the whole me and Jake on over the phone.
And we still have to get you all. Even though I feel like I've been a part of your journey, like I feel like I know, and I even share some of your stuff, I really couldn't either. I couldn't comprehend, or, I couldn't see it laid out of your timeline.
There's a lot of, a lot of confusion with it too.
Yeah.
Because it was just so, I just felt like it was so out of the ordinary.
And I love learning. So I've been sitting in one of those things, like I'm not going to say I don't deserve a seat at the table, but they're always talking above my head at the Rare Disease Advisory Council called RDAC. But I've just been sitting on there because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to hear, or that cue word that's going to trigger me, to the next thing. And so when you were kind of put on the spot first too, talking about when I asked what items, you're like, we don't really need anything. We've been the exception. Sometimes just getting in that community, even if you just sit on the outside, you'll see something somebody uses or does, and you're like
that would really help me.
Yes.
That would really make our life easier.
Oh, yes. So really get out and get involved. You had so many good things to say, and so many things I hope encourages people, gives people hope, whatever people are going through. I know we always say somebody has it worse off than you. You talked about that a little bit before, but there's always something you could do to change somebody's life, to change somebody's story. And she's mentioned listened a lot, but I know she believes the same thing with kindness. It is free to be kind, and everybody.
A smile goes a long way.
Everybody is going through something.
Yes.
You don't know what, but everybody's going through something, and kindness is huge. So I can't thank you enough. And we will definitely do this again with Jake and Ryan to tell more about
Y'all wait till
Jude.
we get Lincoln and Jude in here. I would love to hear what they had to say.
If we don't do it before, maybe we can do it before the wiffle ball, because then Luke would be here. So Luke,
can you imagine all three of them in here?
And Jude. That would be hilarious. Maybe we could get it to where we could interview them, start it or something.
Oh, that would be so funny. I would be completely down for that. I would force Jude to do that.
We're going to put it on so then you got to come down Friday for sure.
Don't have to twist my arm.
Well, thank you guys so much. We mentioned Run for Awareness and Will for a Cure. It's May 3rd, 2025. It's a fundraiser for the Kennedy Ladd Foundation, but it's also a way to bring our community together, but also the NPS 1 community. I will link, like I said, Lauren's, the Jude's Hallelujah story in the show notes and down below. Please share, please subscribe. Please tell everybody you know. It could change one person's life, and that's all we're trying to do is bring hope and create action, inspire action. So please, and we can't thank you enough. Thanks for joining us on Rising Up Rare. Our mission is to shine a light on the entire rare disease community because no matter the diagnosis, each of us have something valuable to share that can bring hope and create change. As a mom, it's my mission to save my children's lives and raise awareness about MPS 1, and I'd love your help. If you found inspiration in today's episode, please subscribe, share, or take a screenshot and post it on social media so others can join us. To learn more or to get involved, visit kennedylad.org. Let's keep rising up rare together.